The assassination of Charlie Kirk sent shockwaves through the political world, but the most striking fallout came from within the MAGA Republican camp. Lawmakers and influencers immediately seized the tragedy to escalate rhetoric rather than calm tensions. Figures like Anna Paulina Luna and Nancy Mace blamed liberals and the corrupt media, insisting that left-wing critics had blood on their hands. Luna declared, "You are the hate you claim to fight," weaponizing grief to push a partisan narrative. Mace lashed out when pressed on her logic, refusing to acknowledge parallels with violence against Democrats. Outside Congress, voices like Libs of TikTok declared, "This is war," while Laura Loomer demanded that the Trump administration defund and prosecute leftist organizations. Elon Musk joined in, branding the left as the party of evil. These responses reveal a movement more interested in fueling conflict than seeking truth. Instead of pausing to consider facts, the shooter wasn't even identified. MAGA leaders treated Kirk's death as political ammunition. Their own-it rhetoric projected blame wholesale onto Democrats, leaving no room for nuance. Far from mourning, the response exposed how tragedy is absorbed into the broader MAGA narrative. Every crisis becomes a tool for stoking outrage, deepening divisions and consolidating power. Charlie Kirk's assassination underscores a terrifying trend. Political violence is no longer an exception in American life. It is becoming the expectation. From the attempted shooting at Trump's rally to this high-profile killing, attacks on figures at every level of politics are mounting. What makes Kirk's murder particularly revealing is how quickly it was absorbed into the partisan battlefield. Instead of uniting against violence, leaders used it as fuel for more anger. History shows political violence thrives where polarization is sharpest. Today's rhetoric, especially from extremist wings, normalizes the idea that opponents aren't just wrong, they're evil. When a figure like Kirk, who thrived on inflammatory speech, is gunned down, it's both shocking and grimly predictable. Even as facts remain scarce about the shooter, MAGA voices rush to claim martyrdom, turning Kirk into a symbol of a war they insist is underway. But the truth is more unsettling. Violence doesn't serve one side alone. It destabilizes democracy itself. When killings are met with "this is war" slogans, it creates a feedback loop where anger breeds more violence. American politics is entering dangerous terrain, where political speech and political bloodshed blur. Kirk's death is not an isolated tragedy. It's a warning shot of how fragile civic peace has become. Words matter, and in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death, rhetoric proved just as powerful and just as dangerous as bullets. MAGA lawmakers and influencers framed the assassination not as a tragedy demanding reflection, but as evidence that their ideological opponents are monsters. Laura Loomer's claim that the Trump administration must defund leftist organizations, or Elon Musk's line branding Democrats the party of evil, illustrate how rhetoric escalates division into existential conflict. This is no accident. MAGA ideology thrives on framing politics as warfare. The transcript captures this perfectly. Libs of TikTok declaring "this is war," Anna Paulina Luna accusing Democrats of being the hate they claim to fight. Such statements aren't mere opinions, they're rhetorical weapons, designed to dehumanize the other side and justify any response, even violence. The irony is thick. Kirk himself was a master of this rhetoric, often painting liberals as threats to America's survival. In death, that same style is turned into a rallying cry. But rhetoric that insists the other side is evil only accelerates polarization, making compromise impossible. Words may not pull a trigger, but they create the culture where someone does. Kirk's assassination isn't just about one man's death. It's a case study in how ideology amplified through rhetoric makes violence feel inevitable. Media shaped both Charlie Kirk's life and his death's aftermath. Fox News, talk radio, and the broader right-wing ecosystem didn't just mourn him. They spun his assassination into a narrative. Hosts and pundits used their platforms to reinforce the idea that Kirk was a martyr of liberal hatred. This wasn't journalism, it was performance. The transcript notes how even Kirk's allies, like Ben Shapiro, offered muted or carefully staged responses, highlighting how every statement was filtered through a media lens. But the influence stretches further. Outlets like Fox have built a culture where political opponents are portrayed as existential threats, priming audiences to see violence as predictable. Social media amplified this, with influencers like Loomer and Libs of TikTok reaching millions, instantly spreading slogans like "this is war" before any facts were confirmed. Even Elon joined the chorus, leveraging his massive platform to brand the left as evil. Media doesn't just report events in today's political climate. It manufactures meaning. Kirk's assassination became less about what happened and more about how it was framed. Viewers weren't encouraged to ask who was the shooter or what motivated the act, but to adopt a narrative, Kirk was killed because Democrats are dangerous. In this sense, the media didn't just cover the tragedy, it weaponized it, proving once again how influence in the information age is as powerful as any gun. The killing of Charlie Kirk must be understood as a political assassination, not just a crime. Kirk wasn't an ordinary citizen. He was a highly visible political figure whose career was built on divisive activism. His assassination carries symbolic weight, instantly transforming him into a martyr for the right. This parallels historical moments where assassinations shifted political landscapes from civil rights leaders to presidents. Each time violence reshaped discourse far beyond the individual. In Kirk's case, the response reveals how assassination is absorbed into the political bloodstream. Rather than sparking bipartisan calls to reduce hostility, it hardened divides. MAGA leaders painted Kirk as a victim of liberal hatred, while critics recalled his own incendiary rhetoric. The meaning of the act was contested before the shooter's identity was even known. That's the danger of political assassination. It's not just the act itself, but the symbolic aftershocks. For some, Kirk's death proves America is under siege from leftist violence. For others, it highlights the risks of a culture drenched in extremist speech. Either way, assassination shifts the narrative. Kirk's death now functions less as an isolated tragedy and more as a political tool, wielded by both sides in America's ongoing war of identity and power. Amid the noise, one question remains: how do we step back from the brink? Charlie Kirk's assassination revealed how deeply polarized America has become. Within hours, leaders on both sides weaponized his death, proving that tragedy no longer pauses the political cycle, it accelerates it. But de-escalation is possible if difficult. First, rhetoric must change. Politicians and influencers cannot keep framing opponents as existential threats. When every speech implies the other side is evil, violence becomes thinkable. Leaders must model restraint, even in grief. Second, media must prioritize facts over framing. Instead of rushing to blame the left or the right, outlets should hold back until verified information emerges. This slows the cycle of outrage. Finally, society must remember that political disagreement does not equal war. America cannot sustain democracy if each side believes the other's elimination is necessary for survival. De-escalation won't come from agreement on policy. It will come from agreement that human life matters more than winning the next news cycle. Kirk's assassination should have been a moment of shared mourning. The fact that it wasn't is a warning. But it can still become a lesson that without de-escalation, democracy itself becomes the next casualty.